Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. My name is Lars Eichstädt, and in this tutorial video I will give you a basic overview over the library Symphonic Orchestra and the interface. So this is our only the basics. I will not explain everything that is inside of this interface, only how we will load in instruments and how the library is organized so that you're ready to go. So for a detailed description, refer to the documentation. So this video is only to give you the basics so that you can get started with the other videos. Alright, so this is the interface that you will get, or this is the view that you will get when you open up Symphonic Orchestra the first time. So what you have to know right from the beginning is that you have in Symphonic Orchestra you have two views. One view is the so-called player view. In this view, you modify your instruments. The player view is the view that we have is currently visible here, and you have the second view that is the so-called browser view. And in this browser view, you load in your instruments. Okay, to get into this browser view, we have this button right here at the top where it's labeled browser. So when we click on that, we get into the browser view. And we can also see when we look at the button again, we see that it's now labeled player. So this button is the switch between the two views, and it always tells us in which view we will get when we click on it. Okay, so this is the browser view in here. So we have your three columns right here in the middle where you browse through the different folders. In this window here, you have the list of all of your instruments that you loaded in. We will see later on how it will look like when there are entries. And in this window here, you have all of your installed sound libraries listed. So in our case, we select Symphonic Orchestra, and then we will see these. In the beginning, we will see only these 4 entries. So I will click on them so that we will only see these 4 folders and these folders. So this is how it will look when you open up the library the first time. Click on this, you will get the folders. Depending on the version you will have sometimes other folders, like here as silver instruments from the silver edition as well. Don't get confused of that. The folder which is important for you of these here is the instruments folder, and in your case choose always the one of the version that you purchase. So if you have the Platinum or Platinum Plus version, then use the Platinum instruments folders. Okay, so before we start loading in instruments, we will take a look at how the library is organized. So it's basically divided into the 4 different instrument groups. So when you click on instrument groups, for example the strings, then you get a list of every string instruments that are available. So we can see we have on the one side here we have sections, the normal sections of an orchestra. We have here 3 cellos, 4 violins, 4 little ensembles. Then we see we have solo instruments, solo cello, basses, viola and violin. And then we have some other string instruments like a harp and a harpsichord. There's one special folder, this one here. It's a large string and stands for large string ensemble. In this folder are files where you have the whole string section mapped onto your keyboard, and you can use it to create general ideas. If you have a new piece and start composing, you can load in one of these files and start experimenting and see what you're gonna do. Okay, so let's take a further look. If we go, for example, to the violas, if we click on this, the number first of all, the number here tells us how many players are playing the instruments. So we click now on the violas. Then we notice several things. First of all, everything shifted one column to the left. And we see we get some up to 6 folders in here. So now in every folder there are now then the files sorted by their specific articulations, and you have long articulations and short articulations. Long articulations are articulations like, for example, legato or sustain, and short articulations, for example, like staccato or pizzicato. Then you have a folder where you have some effects, some slidings or scratches for, like you know them maybe from horror films. The fourth folder here, mod xfd, is a special folder because here you have files where you crossfade between different articulations using the mod wheel. We will take a look at them in the following videos of this tutorial series. Then you have 5 and 6 where we have key switch files. Key switch files are files where you also have all all available articulations of, in our example, the violas mapped onto your keyboard, and you use keyboard keys to switch between different articulations. So we will take a look at these instruments in a minute. Yeah, before that we will then take a look first of all how the different files or patches are named. So we go to the short folder, then we see everything shift to the left once more, and we now have a list of all of the available articulations. When we now take a look, for example, at this one here, it may seem in the beginning confusing or strange, but it's actually very simple. Every patch consists of often of 3 parts. The first part is the general name. So in most cases you get the specific string section. For example, in our case, the string section that you are using right now. So here we have VAS, the short form for violas. Then we have the second part, which is then the articulation that we will load in using this file. In our case here, it is stack for staccato. You find a great table in the documentation about all of the short forms of the articulations, so that you know which short form stands for which articulation. And then often you also have a third part where you see sometimes some special attributes a file has. In our case, it's double R and an X8. This stands for a file that has more than one sample recorded for each note, which is very handy if you come to parts in your piece where you have one note in quick repetition multiple times. If you have only one sample for one note, it can sound very quickly, very mechanical, and you can very fast can hear that it's music made on the computer, and that's of course something that we don't want at all. So when we come to especially the short articulations in string sections, we will take a look and we will we'll do massive use of these files here. So let's see how many samples we have for each note. So the number here after the X, you can also call it times 8. So here you have 8 samples for each note. The double R stands for the so-called round robin technology. That's how the creators of the library called the algorithm that walks itself through the different samples when we play only one note. It's the so-called round robin algorithm. Okay, yeah, so that's how the files are named. And you can see you often have multiple versions of one um, articulation, which often differs. In our example here, the amount of samples. So here we have only 2 samples. So if you have a double R, it's that you have 2 samples for each node. Here we have 4 samples for each node, and here we have 8 samples. And it often depends on how many repetitions you will have. The more samples you have for each note, of course, the more it will have to be loaded into the RAM. So always keep that in mind. If we don't have, let's say, 16 notes in quick repetition, one after the other, then you should consider using only the round robin 4 or only the round robin which has only 2 samples, because you can save RAM if you don't need that much samples for each node. Alright, so let's first load in the viola staccato to see how you load in instruments. It's very, very simple. You just double click on the name and it's get loaded in. You have the progress bar right here, which tells you the progress of the loading. And then you will notice several things. One is that several keys here became white. So these keys here are, if you play them, are the keys of the tonal range of the viola. So it starts from the C here up to the D here. And everything after that is nothing. So there will nothing sound. And you can also see that in our list that we talked a bit a while ago, now filled with the name here. And we also notice that we have this little number right here. And this is the MIDI channel number, because we will need later on the MIDI channels to get access to all of the different patches right there. But don't worry, if you have Cubase or FL Studio, you can take a look in the YouTube channel. There I did videos about how to set up Symphonic Orchestra in FL Studio and in Cubase. Okay, so that's how you load in an instrument. And now we'll also take a look at the key switch instrument. So we go to the 5 and choose key switch master. Elements is a little bit different. We won't deal with this one right here. In the manual there is a quick description about the two differences. It's only a little difference. But we will use master because in this file you have the articulations on your keyboard keys. So if you double click on this one and every time you load in more than one instrument, it gives you this little dialog and it asks you what you want to do with this instrument. So you can either add this instrument or replace it with the current one that we had. So in our case it would be here the violas. We could, when we click on replace, we would replace this violas patch with the key switches, with this patch right here. But we don't want this, so we click on, we want to add it, so we go on add. These switch patches often, as you can see, take a little while until they load it in, because yeah, there is a lot that needs to be loaded in. Be also aware that the key switch patches, of course, because of the huge amount of samples that have to be loaded in, also yeah, needs a little bit of RAM, so always keep that in mind. Okay, so now you notice that you have these blue keys, and on every of these blue keys are several articulations. But now let's switch to the player view to actually see which articulations are on the keys, and also what we can do to modify this instrument a little bit. So once again, I won't explain everything of the interface, only the basics, so that you are ready to get started with the other videos of the tutorial series. But in the manual there is a complete description of the whole play engine and the interface, and also of course on Sounds Online, Nick Phoenix also did a video about the play engine in detail. So let's move to the player view again, and we see that this list here also, if you may remember, before we loaded in anything, it was completely empty. Now it's filled, and this is the list of our articulations. It also tells us here articulations that are available on the different keys. So you can see it's a lot. Very quickly, let's take a look what we have. So for example, at D1 you have pizzicato, and also you can see that you have round robin patches here. So we click on the D, and then we have pizzicato. Or you can, for example, do the A, and there we have such long articulations. Yeah, so what you can then do using the key switch patches, you can then play along on your keyboard, and with the left hand toggle the different articulations, and there you can also yeah, create ideas, what you want to do with a specific string section, for example. Okay, so let's take a quick look before we finish that video. Quick look at a few functions. So here we have the master fader. So here you adjust the volume of your current instrument that you modify in this player view. Which instrument that is, you can see in that list. So when we click on the list, we can then switch between different instruments. So we could also move, just for demonstration to see what happens with that list here, to the staccato one. We see that it's, yeah, nearly everything vanished. The blue keys are vanished. Excuse me. And that's only our articulation for staccato. Okay, but let's go back to the key switches and take a look at what we can do to them. So here we have our master fader. Then here is the nice feature when you have multiple microphone positions. You can then mix between different positions using the faders. And there create the sound you want. I don't have the different microphone positions, so I can't show it to you, but you can experiment with that if you have the Platinum version. Yeah, it's only a mixing task, so nothing that can really be shown. Okay. You load in different microphone positions using these little circles here, so you can click on a circle to load in or also unload in a microphone position, and with these buttons here you mute them. Yeah, two last things. One of them is I want to show you is the great Reverb Engine. It's a convolution reverb. It's really nice. You have a lot of presets available, and they are worth experimenting what they are doing. To enable it, you click on, of course, and then you can click on this field here, and bam, then you get this huge list. And also notice there is a scroll bar, so yeah, there are quite a few that you can use, and they're very nice ones. Yeah, so for example, we could choose Live Cathedral. Also be aware that the convolution reverb also is very strenuous on your CPU. So if you have, or if you say you want this reverb on all of your instruments that you loaded in, or let's call it patches, let's say better, all the patches that you loaded in, you can use the master button. If you click on, it will tells you basically that turning on the master will will apply reverb to all of your other patches without activating reverb for every patch. So this saves yeah, DSP resources. So we click on OK, and so it's the difference, because now when we go to the violas, we see that reverb is on, but the difference now is that in this case here, the files for the reverb plugin aren't loaded in once more. So the files from the key switch patch are used. So it's maybe like an effect track that you have on a sequencer that you to that you assign multiple tracks using this one effect track. So you could think of it maybe like this here using the on master button. Yeah, of course you can adjust the volume. The more volume you have, the more reverb you get. And you see, be careful with every knobs and faders here. They're very sensitive. You can very quickly crank up the volume, only going up to, let's say, this, or yeah, this, to do this position here. You can make it sometimes twice, or yeah, twice as loud, very, very quickly, and be really careful with this. Yeah, and one last thing here, you have performance scripts also, so that you can you can turn them on for your patches, so that it emulates, for example, the legato sounds. Or a repetition is a script created exactly for some patches that don't have more than one sample recorded for each note. So the script tries to alter the notes a little bit so that they sound a little bit different when you hit them in quick succession. And the last one is a portamento, so that simulates the portamento sound. But it's often better to use specific patches that have portamento articulations and legato articulations and playing techniques, because it's often much more better. But we will take a look at all of these articulations that have legato and portamento playing techniques in the following videos in detail. And also, of course, every time be aware that every time you turn on the performance scripts, the convolution reverb always is turned on, because the so-called release trails are cut off when you turn on the performance scripts. What exactly release trails are is documented in the documentation. There is a very nice explanation, and it's better than the one I could give you. So yeah, there's a quick introduction explanation of that. Yeah, so that's now the basics. Now you know how to load in several instruments. One last thing, how you can delete an instrument. Very, very simple. Go back to the browser view, into list, and there is delete. And often you notice when you modified an instrument, and modified often means only turning on the reverb, excuse me, you get this little star in brackets. That's the sign that this patch now was modified. So in order to delete the instrument, you just click on delete, and it asks us, do you really want to delete the instrument? And we say yes, we want to kill it. So we click yes, and it's deleted from this list, of course not out of the library. And one last thing, you can change the MIDI channel number with clicking on this little field here and choose every channel number you like. Alright, so these are now the basics. You know how to load in instruments, how to delete them, how to add reverb to them and adjust the master volume, and that's everything you need right now to move to the other videos. So thanks for watching, and I hope you take a look at the other videos, and thanks for watching.